Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner, and today I'm joined by the one and only comics super journalist, Joel Meadows. How are you doing, mate?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, mate, thanks so much for joining me. Now, what I know and what many people in the comics business will know, but not necessarily everybody will know, is that you have been at the forefront of pop culture journalism for 3 decades. Essentially, exactly the same period of time that I've been working in the same field. And, you and I've run into each other many
Yes,
times over the years in many different guises. But of course, what you're the most famous for is Tripwire magazine and the Tripwire Award. So, do you want to take me? Do you want to rock me through your career, Joel?
of course. I mean, Tripwire started life just as a fanzine.
Yeah,
It started life covering comics and music, but I basically parted company with the guy I used to do the music stuff with. But we replaced music with film and TV, which is a much better fit.
yeah,
So we started life as a fanzine. We kept evolving as a print magazine. In 2011, we published the last print mag for a little while. In 2013, we did our 21st anniversary book. And then 2015, we launched the website. But I'd always missed print because I'd always worked in print journalism and print magazines. So in 2020, which obviously was like one of the worst times in our modern history, I decided to go back to print. So our first print edition, for the first time in 10 years, came out in December 2020. It did really well. So we did another one in November 2021. And then we thought we'd do an anniversary book this year because it's 30 years. It started at the end of February 1992, the magazine. So we wanted to do an anniversary book to commemorate that. And so we've been working on that properly for about the last 6 months.
Over the years, you've been publishing Tripwire. Do you want to talk about the Tripwire Awards for a bit, mate?
Of course. I mean, basically, in 2018, when we were first involved with the Portsmouth Comic Show, we wanted to set up an awards because, as far as I know, that there weren't any other British comic awards, and we'd done Tripwire for a long time. We wanted to basically put something back.
Yes.
So we wanted to, as I said, to put something back into the comics industry and say, look, these are the people who've done so much for the industry, either over many decades, and also celebrate newer talent. And it just seemed to be a good opportunity to do it. And we've done 4 of these now. We did a physical awards ceremony back in September, which went really well, and I'm very, very proud of them, to be honest. And
Yeah, quite right.
it keeps steamrolling, and we keep building momentum with them. And I'm very chuffed, and the plan's already afoot. It's kind of early days, but there will be a 5th Tripwire Awards next year.
Excellent. Oh, well, that's great to hear because they have really cut through and caught the industry's imagination. I remember when the last round of awards came out. The winning creators were clearly very touched. It was very meaningful to them to win the awards, and that must feel great for you, mate.
Oh, it does. I mean, Alan Grant, we sadly lost this year. When I was 16 or 17, he was one of the very first comic creators that I met, and he won one of our Roll of Honor awards this year. So it was I felt like it was a really nice tribute to a major British comics talent who we lost, in 2022. I mean, this year has been a really awful year for losing, really major comics people. So, the purpose of the Roll of Honor is to offer a tribute. I mean, there's some people who are still with us, but others who are not, sadly. But just to say, these guys, the comics that you read now, these guys did so much groundwork for these books to exist, if you like, for the industry.
Yeah. I really couldn't agree more. And what for those who are going to order Tripwire 30, what can they look forward to, mate?
Well, there's a mix. There's a mix of brand new material. So things like the Image celebrates its 30th anniversary, as did us. So we had a look back at Vertigo. Sorry, at Image at 30, and also had a look back at DC's Vertigo imprint. Sally's no longer with us, but they did some great work. So it's kind of like a piece looking at the impact that Vertigo had, because it started the same year that we did, but it's not there, but its influence is still very much keenly felt. So you've got those. You've got to look at Marvel movies, because then what's amazing to think is that when we started the magazine, as well as there not really being much internet, there was no Marvel movies. It took to Blade in 1998 to the first Marvel movie, and then 2008 had Iron Man. So there's a new piece on that. There's 30 comic book movies in the last 30 years. There's 30 independent comic creators who've come to prominence in the last 30 years. There's the Sherlock Holmes comic strip, which I've written a brand new third short for, and it's packed full of really cool art as well. People like Frank Miller, Drew Struzan, Bill Sienkiewicz, just a whole range of people. So it's a really good package. I wanted to make it a mix, so a mix of reprints, but also some new material.
Yeah, and you were very kind to send me a PDF, and it is a wonderful package. I think you've done a
Thank
great
you.
job putting it together, mate. I love the essential conceit of the 30 Marvel movies thing. I talk a lot on this show about how much the mainstream world's knowledge of comics lore has changed over
Oh
12
yes,
years. In just 12 years, how massively different things were in 2005 compared to how they are now. And yeah,
yes.
just the fact that, and I'm repeating myself because I've said this a lot, but just the fact that everyone knows who Tony Stark is, everyone knows who Steve Rogers is. That's, everyone knows who Peter Quill is. It's amazing.
Oh, it is. It is staggering to think that. It is. It's amazing. And things. I mean, in the early days of the magazine, I mean, so many things have changed. I mean, when we first interviewed Frank Quitely, we did it via the post. So I
Yeah,
would send him
brilliant.
questions. Because it's pre-internet days. People just don't realize, how different things were.
Oh man, I mean, so different. Right down to if you've ever worked inside, say, magazine production, which I once did, just the way everything was put together in the mid '80s compared to now. I mean, just going through endless rounds of film and printing plates and all that kind of
Yeah, I
stuff.
remember. I remember paste ups as well,
Yeah,
and I
right
remember.
on.
I remember.
Yeah,
I remember plates. We had
yeah.
for our 5th anniversary issue, which had the Frank Quitely 2020 Visions cover. We got metal plates made because there was a guy that used to design for us who used to work for the Daily Mail kind of foreign edition, and he got metal plates made. And I wish I still had them because they were very, very cool. Things like that, and color separations, all the stuff, and it just kind of sounds like an alien. And I also, when I was at sixth form college, I did work experience at the long gone now What's On magazine, and they
Oh
would do
yeah,
their
right on.
pages. They would paste them up so that they would have big boards, big cardboard boards. They would paste up stuff with spray mount, and they would cut out it just sounds so alien now, and it feels
It
so
really
ancient.
is. Yeah.
The technology it's just ridiculous if you think about it. But it was interesting, to see, because it was a real sea change for magazines and for publications, and
Yeah.
and everything is digital now. Like comic artists in the old days, they would, if they were British based and they delivered stuff to 2000 AD, they would go to the pub to deliver pages, or if they had to send stuff to the US, they would have to put a big box together for FedEx, which would cost a fortune, which they'd have to send, physically. And it's now, at the press of a button, they can finish a page, and in 5 minutes, the editor can have the pages. It's incredible.
Oh, mate, I remember packaging up pouches to the US every Friday, and it's as big a difference as there is between, say, an episode of Gangs of London and an episode of The Sweeney. That
Oh God,
it's
yes,
the same thing. It's exactly the
it's
same thing.
incredible.
Yeah, no, it is incredible. And on that note, mate, when you look back over your 30 years of Tripwire,
Yes.
what's the thing that you're proudest of? Do you think, Joel?
Well, I mean, there are so many things. I mean, we set up the magazine as a place to cover stuff that other people didn't. So we did, we covered Vertigo for a long time before anyone else, because, what I thought was interesting was the fact that these are British comic creators and that they live, down the road from me, like in 1992, when they did this disastrous Alexandra Palace Comic Convention,
Yeah.
that was the weekend that we launched. But the fact that someone like Pete Milligan, he lives in East Finchley now. I used to live in kind of Muswell Hill near the North Circular. But the idea of having comic creators who lived, near you, when I was a kid, you read comics, there are always these American guys. There would be someone who lived in New York or LA
Yeah,
or
right on.
or America. But the idea of British comic creators. So I'm very proud, that we supported that for a long time. And it's just, I guess it's just developing all these skills, over the years. And it is fascinating to look at old issues of the magazine, because some of them are primitive, but sometimes I've forgotten things that we've done. We've done so much stuff. We've covered so much over the years, both on the web and also in the book. And it was interesting to look at the book and to go, right, what should this book be? And it's hard because you could slice it a number of different ways. You can make it purely reprints. You could cover one certain thing. You could, at one point I was thinking about, reprinting whole interviews, but I decided to do it as a series of excerpts. So that gives people more diversity in terms of like what's in there, and more of a range of different things. So I guess the Vertigo thing, I mean, in 2020, when we went back to print, I went back to my Sherlock Holmes strip, which I hadn't touched in, nearly 20 years. And I've written 3 of those. I'm very, very proud. And next year, we're going to be doing like an original graphic novel with the Sherlock Holmes stuff, and I'm very chuffed with them. You know, I've got a great artist, this guy Andy Bennett, who's American. You know, and I've got 22 pages of comic strip which I wrote, which I may never have considered that I would have got that off the ground and done it in a way where, you know, I've done it where, you know, a lot of professionals, you know, really like it. So I'm very, very proud of that.
Oh, mate, that is wonderful. And I think that what you've done is a beautiful job of encapsulating that entire journey within Tripwire 30. And not only that, you've got an introduction to the book from our mutual friend, Dirk Wood, who now...
Yes, Dirk's great. And
he's
Martin
a great bloke who
Grayson,
works at Image Comics.
Of previews, who was very flattering. He compared me to Forrest... I can't remember his bloody name now. The famous monsters. I'm sorry, I'm having a bit
Forrest
of a
J.
brain
Ackerman. Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Mate, you are the Forrest J. Ackerman of the UK. That's exactly right.
I thought that was amazing. I mean, I felt incredibly flattered
that
he compared me to him. You know, so no, I'm very chuffed, and it's a book I'm really proud of. I mean, you know, we're not sitting on our laurels because I'm in the process of creating another print magazine at the moment, which will be out the end of this month. So it's, I mean, to be honest, what I try and do with with all of our print magazines is I try and make each one better than the last. And the book is the same principle. I wanted the book to encapsulate 30 years of us, but also how things have changed in 30 years of comics and 30 years of genre. And I think I'd like to think we've done a good job of that.
Wonderful, mate. Yeah, and I think you have. And for everybody watching this, Tripwire 30 is available for order from the links attached to our conversation. And Joel, thanks so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
TV,
Thank you for having
me on.
It's
really great to see you.
And it's been fun to chat and to kind of take a trip down memory lane.
Absolutely. Always great to chat with you, mate. You take care of yourself.
Cheers. Thanks, Andrew. Take care.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.